Membership in Canada. He serves as the chairperson of the Newell Foundation Seniors Housing and is vice president of the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association, which represents cities with a population up to 500,000. So on that note, without further ado, Barry, we welcome you to share your words of wisdom.
All right, so, it's always good to break the ice, so I'm going to share with you, probably now that you're all done eating, I've had two moments lately in relation to the health system. So one's going to illustrate how small a place the city of Brooks actually is, and then the other one was going to be my aha healthcare moment. So I turned 50 this year. I know, size and oh, we've got some cheers there, that's interesting. But so I had a full physical, and my doctor sends me a note and says, Barry, we gotta get this scope done. Okay. So, I'm, a little nervous about it. But anyway, so the little background. The city of Brooks is about just under 15,000 people. The county of Newell is about 7,500. I graduated from a small community in the county of Newell. So there's about 22,000 people in the whole area. We have a day surgery unit in the hospital that operates 4 days a week. So on my turn, my day, I am, of course, all dressed up in the hospital favorites, and I'm on the gurney and I'm being wheeled into the room, and out somebody, this is how small the community is, out of the room, because our class was 16 people graduated, was somebody I graduated with coming out of the room. So we high-fived each other, and he said, don't worry about it, I can't remember a thing. So that put me at ease, and then I looked up while I'm waiting to go in the room. They're obviously doing something in the room. I look up, and there's this about 9 or 10 foot cabinet with a sliding door. It looks like a gun rack, right, of some kind. And there's these black things with these 6 foot long, 7 foot long, and I'm going, what is that? And then I went, that's what those are. Anyway, health system worked really well. And so, yeah, when you meet somebody who graduated from high school, you haven't seen him for 5 or 6 years, and you meet him gurney to gurney coming out of an operating room, that's a relatively small community. So been introduced, just a little bit of some of the things I'm going to talk about. So Jackie did a really good job of showing you how communities need to look inward and consider all of the things that make them unique and great and worth saving. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about the things that come outside that help serve that purpose. And it talks a lot about collaboration and partnerships and the ability to create that backbone that will support what you're trying to do in your community. And one of the things that I've learned very quickly, and particularly as it's happened in the last 5 or 6 years, is we cannot do it by ourselves. We all treasure rural Alberta. I think rural Alberta is really important, obviously, to this group. But one of the things that we need to remember is that we can't do it ourselves. And if we sit back and try to do it ourselves, we will have solutions imposed on us by other levels of government, by other organizations. And I, for one, do not want that to happen. I believe the best solutions reside with us. And if we want to communicate those, we need to do it together. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about how the song goes, is that you can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you get what you need. So I'm going to talk about a barrier and how it started. So when I got elected the last time in 2010, the mayor of the day said, assigned us to all our committees and said, please have a look at the committees and see how valuable they are. Is it time well spent? So my committee was the Economic Development Committee of Brooks. We had good membership, we had chamber membership, we had somebody from the BRZ, we had a couple businessmen, we had a budget, and we had all just amazing amount of ideas. No ability to do them though, none. So by the third meeting, I proposed that we dissolve. And of course that was met with a lot of anxiety, because one of the things in order to build a backbone that's beyond your own ability to carry is the ability to manage the change. You need to manage the change or be prepared to change. So it took us about 6 months to actually decide to dissolve. We did not want to dissolve. We did not want to give up our autonomy. We did not want to give up our committee, even though in the minutes going back 12 months, 2 years, we hadn't really accomplished a bunch. Had meetings, but we hadn't really accomplished much. At the time, the county had what they called their economic development. It was a regional, which had the smaller municipalities, the County of Newell, the EID, they had a few other, Eastern Irrigation District was on it. And so we dissolved, and our plan was to join them. So that was met with resistance as well. They said, well, why would the city of Brooks, with 14,000 people and the largest hub of the area, why do you want to join us? What are you going to do when you get here? Like, do you want a veto? Do you want this? Well, we wanted one vote. There were 7 or 8 voting members. We wanted one vote. We wanted to promote economic development in the area as a group because we really felt, truly feel, and still do feel, that we're far more effective together, that what's good for the community, good for the area, is good for us. But again, that took over 12 months to get that group to allow us to join. And it's an illustration of what gets in the way. Change should not be it should be cautiously looked at, like you want to make change for good reasons, but don't discard it just because it is change. The fact is that we don't have a monopoly on all the good ideas, and we certainly don't have a monopoly on all the information. So we need to get out there and get it. But that's just one example of where it took us 18 months to simply join another group because of suspicion and the inability to consider changing. We can't be there. Think about that, that's just in Brooks. On a provincial scale, if we don't consider how we're going to change, how we're going to manage it, how we're going to be part of it, we could be stuck where we are for a very, very, very long time. Now I'm going to talk about a successful part of what we do in Brooks, and that is our Joint Services Committee. I was first elected in 1998, and we did annually meet with the county. And I can tell you, we always had a meal, and we had absolutely nothing substantive discussed. We didn't really like each other. We were trying to do an IMDP at the time. Lots of interest trying to be served. Nobody wanted to get along. A suggestion would be made, and the comment would be, well, why do you want to do that? That's my jurisdiction. Like, why do you want to do that? You know, it was very, 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 very territorial. Over the years, with the past mayor, Martin Shields, what they did was they started a Joint Services Committee. And at first, all they did was meet. They had no mandate. They had no authority. They just met. They met once a month. The County of Newell, the City of Brooks. And from that relationship, 5 years later, we now run economic development. And actually, one of my councillors, Dan Klein, who's the chair of that committee right now, is here. We run economic development from that committee. We have spending authority and decision-making authority granted to us by our councils. We've gone to include the 3 other municipalities, which is the town of Bazzano, the village of Dutchess, the village of Rosemary. We bring in the Eastern Irrigation District, the school districts. And what it has allowed us to do is a couple of things. We've built incredible relationships. And they're not, you know, we're not friends. We don't go out for dinner and stuff. We're not like social friends, but we've developed trust and understanding about where we come from, what we do, and what's important to us. And we have a different view on our decision making. Makes a huge difference, again, to build capacity and to build understanding in your community to make things happen. Our current practices include bringing in groups that'll inform us about what's going on in our community on a regular basis. It's a very strong network of information. When we did our skill days twice, it has been through this committee where we took all the resources of all the communities and the people that were in place and pulled off, I think, really 2 great skill days through our RPAP. And again, if we'd had tried to do that on our own, there would have been a whole segment of our population that didn't know what we were doing. And that's just not, it's just not an option anymore. You just can't get things done. The other thing about the whole idea of getting along and getting together is moving up and becoming what I call, there's really 3 things that you have to do. If I can find my notes, which are all mixed up here, sorry. You have to be informed, involved, and included. So how many of you here are part of the AUMA or the AMDNC? So most of the elected are. Is any of you not part of those organizations that are elected officials? No, so there are a couple, but so you know, they aren't the solution to everything, but one of the things, again, they do, and I'll use the RPAP example. If you remember, the government here a little while ago brought in the ABCs. They were reviewing all the boards and commissions in the province, and RPAP was one of them. And when the news started to trickle out that they were considering that, there were 2 resolutions gone through, one at AMDNC, one at AUMA, that said to the health minister, do not change the mandate of RPAP. It also trickled down to individual communities. I know we were involved in it. We sent letters, we sent resolutions. But what it did was it allowed a larger voice to speak as one. This is something we will not tolerate. We want this group in place to do the good job it's doing. We don't want you to consider an alternative. If anything, we want you to consider how you might enhance the service, but do not take it away arbitrarily. And I was at the AMDNC convention where the health minister stood up and said RPAP would not be changed. And again, if we're not involved and we don't include ourselves in those discussions and we're not informed of what's going on, we can't possibly be effective about managing change and managing change to our benefit. One of the key things going forward for this group, for doctor retention, for community building, in our opinion, and I speak in our opinion because at the AUMA convention next week, we will have 2 county representatives with us. We will have a representative from the couple representatives of the town of Bazzano, the village of Dutchess, village of Rosemary, coming to our minister meetings. The County of Newell is an associate member of AUMA. They will be attending on our behalf. They'll come to our meetings. They'll be involved in our entourages. And what it does is it informs that group about our perspective generally. And I will be attending AMDNC. And again, it's information and backbone. I understand for my community what the people around it and what the elected official around me are trying to accomplish. And I can actually help facilitate that because it does better us completely. The other thing I want to talk about is how you can get together and how you can create bigger things but keep the expectations a little bit more reasonable, because that is a problem. One of the problems with partnerships is that if I say I want to join you, you go, well, what do I get out of that partnership? And I might say, well, if it's just the 2 of us, you're going to get half, I'm going to get half, it's going to be good. So what happens when you have 63 members and you have a relatively small budget? So the Canadian Badlands Tourism is 63 municipal members. And guess what? We can't do everything for everybody every year. So what we've had to do is we've had to, again, manage the expectation and look at what is best for all of us on a broad basis. What is good for the Badlands is good for Brooks. What is good for the Badlands is good for Stettler. What is good for the Badlands is good for the city of Lethbridge. What's good for the Badlands is good for the village of Acme or the hamlet of Tilly. It is. But getting from there to there again is managing that change in the expectation. Please, one message I will tell you, when you go away and you talk to your counties and the other organizations around you, and I really do encourage you to meet with them and talk to them, even if they don't want to talk to you. We all have a few situations that we know of where no one wants to talk to no one. But again, it informs the discussion, and plus what it does is it allows you as an elected official, particularly elected officials, because we get to deal with the politics of it, to form a common reason for being around. Canadian Badlands is simple. We want to become the next iconic tourist destination in Alberta. We want to be the Rockies on the flatland. That's what we want to do. We want people to come there. Now, how does that affect Strathmore? It affects Strathmore however Strathmore ends up having it affect it. But overall, that's what we're trying to do. If we can talk about things broadly with that, because we are subjects to a whole bunch of external forces, the provincial government being obviously a large one for us, it's incumbent upon us to begin to develop common messaging, common positions, to the point where we can speak with one voice, clearly and loudly, and say, you know what, in our area, in our communities, this is what we need to be considered. It's a really nice thing that you're trying to accomplish with A, B, and C, but in my community, this is not going to work. In our communities, this is going to cause a problem. But if we speak with, in the Badlands, if I had 63 members complaining about every single decision we made, guess how many decisions we'd make? So you can imagine what it's like with the province when they have 250 members going to them with 250 concerns, not one common theme. Decisions don't get made. And for us to make success in rural Alberta, we need decisions to be made. And then we can deal with it. But I really think it's important for you to be involved, be included, and be informed about what you're doing, what others are doing, what your enemies are doing. Guess what? The only way you can find out what your enemies are doing, if you have them, is to go and talk to your enemy. Sorry, it's really simple. I know it seems simple, but we try to be as honest as we can at our joint service meetings. We don't try to keep things to the side. We try to put them out there and say, you know, if we do this, what do you think? This is the way we're going. We're trying to accomplish this. What do you think? Sometimes the discussions don't. Sometimes we don't support each other on individual things, but we always know what's going on. The other thing we do, again, I guess the whole collaboration theme is something that I think just runs deep in our area. We have 5 clinics. So for all you doctors that are here, sorry, but we should have 1. We have 5. They compete all the time, and I can understand that to a certain degree, but we have 5 separate ones. And we, as a group, try to include them in everything, but they don't include anybody in anything. They have their own, and it does show we have some issues there. And again, for us, it's about trying to make sure the information flows. No secrets from anybody. When a clinic is changing or when AHS is saying this is coming, we share that with everybody. We don't keep it to ourselves. We make sure everybody knows. It just makes it very hard to divide us. It does really make it very hard to divide us. So if we're going to accomplish common goals, common messaging, even launch a common campaign, we have to be informed. And you have to be not afraid to kind of put yourself out there and say, my community needs this, I'm vulnerable here, I need help. What can we do together? It's difficult sometimes to talk to your partner or potential partner about your weakness or about your concern because you don't want to appear to be in a situation where, boy, I need help. But we actually do. It's okay. Let's move forward in good faith or we won't move forward. So I know I'm not going to talk a lot more. Just, again, I guess you can understand that I'm passionate about these things. I think that organizations like AUMA and AMDNC and RPAP that are regional and provincial and have memberships that rely on their memberships to be involved, you need to be involved. When they send surveys, you need to fill them out. When they ask for input, you need to provide input. You need to do that because they want to speak with that loud, strong voice. And if you don't provide them the tools necessary, the information necessary, can't be done. So it gives you so much strength when you're talking as one. All of the groups that you're involved in, I really encourage you to do that. Don't stand on the sideline. Don't think because everything is great in your community on that issue that you shouldn't provide anything for everybody else. You do need to because your turn will come, your time will come, and you will need those groups. You will need that organization to stand behind you and support the things that you need in your community. So realize we're not alone. Make sure you take the time to find out who your municipal girls are, ladies, women, men, everything. Whether they are in the county, in your own community, make sure you take the time to meet them. And it's a really good exercise that we're doing here, trying to meet everybody here. But do it at home. Like I said, our first joint services meetings, we just sat there, from what I understand, I wasn't at the table at the first one. They just sat there and kind of stared at each other. So why are we here? We've never talked before, but we do. So I'm just going to leave you with one question to take home, and go home and ask your individual council or your individual group, why haven't you talked to your neighbor? What's stopping you from talking to them? What's stopping you from attending AUMA or AMDNC as an associate member? What's stopping you from going across the table and asking what's going on? If you can take that away, and I'm sure we're community-minded people, we can make some progress. So just ask the question. That's it. I didn't want to tell you too much because I knew lunch was really heavy and I'm ready to go to sleep. So unless there's any questions, I'm prepared to surrender the microphone. I know I tend to ramble, but... So thank you very much for paying attention.